Thank you, Senator. We will try to be brief. Senators, delegates, chairmen, chairwomen, Stuart Katzenberg, Director of Collective Bargaining and Growth with AFSCME Council 3. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk about what's going on our campuses, both financially, but also, most importantly, for health and safety. Could you please pass the next slide? Thank you. So we represent 90+% of all public higher education workers in the state of Maryland. And our union has sort of seen it all at this point. And frankly, we've been, for the most part, really disappointed by the response of higher education leaders. Slide. At St. Mary's, negotiations have been completely hostile. In meeting with HR, they resisted any calls for mandatory testing and said they would only test unless the governor made them. There's been a complete lack of transparency about how decisions have been made. Our members were not involved in any way of shaping the health and safety plan. At BCCC, which I know isn't at this meeting, but is technically a state entity, they've refused to negotiate throughout the pandemic and have not responded to us contacting them. We have multiple ULPs pending at the Labor Board. A bright spot has been Morgan State, where we've met with President Wilson. We met with him relatively early, and we mutually agreed about the need for testing and supported each other in driving to get mandatory testing. And that has helped prevent a lot of our members getting sick. And when some of them have gotten sick because of the regular tests, it's been able to prevent a greater spread. We're bargaining with them next week. Slide. With the USM, we've been really disappointed. The system has the ability to create health and safety policies to cover every campus, and they have refused to negotiate with us about policies. Instead, every campus sort of does their own thing. We actually approached this system before campus closures in early March because we were concerned about rising COVID-19 around the country. AFSCME members in California were already experiencing it, and we wanted to get ahead of it. We were disappointed in that meeting, and we've remained disappointed throughout the pandemic in their response that instead of creating policy, they create guidance, principles, and concepts to avoid bargaining with AFSCME. AFSCME and its affiliates, we're not involved in any campus plans for health and safety for our members. Our members have continued to report throughout the entire pandemic, keeping the campuses operational and putting themselves in grave jeopardy. We've continued to also have a problem about transparency by campus and system-wide about any of our members getting infected with COVID-19. They refuse to give us any numbers. We believe our members have a right to know about unsafe working conditions. If there's a chemical spill on a campus, we would have the right to know where the chemical spill is so to prevent further danger for our members. In this case, with this airborne virus, we're not even getting locations of where there's been outbreaks or where our members have been working where they've been getting sick or students. There's no accounting, and it's been a great disappointment. Next slide. At Bowie State, the administration didn't tell our physical plant staff and our union leadership that they were setting up a quarantine dorm on campus. They repurposed a dorm that had been closed. Next slide. The sign on your left was taped on the door, which was the original sign, and only sign on the building about it being a quarantine dorm filled with sick students. The newer sign on the right was just updated. Our members refused to work it because they were not given proper PPE or trained at Bowie. We advised them it was an unsafe condition and they should tell their supervisor that. At Bowie, they also have refused to bargain any furlough policy with AFSCME and said, this is what it is, in a hostile meeting 24 hours before it was released to the whole campus. Next slide. At Frostburg State, which you'll hear more about later, the administration had furlough plans that had been emailed around to campus throughout the summer, and they refused to engage AFSCME. Their plans at virus control, we were skeptical of, such as just hanging shower curtains from the ceiling. They do not have quarantine or isolation on campus. Students are sent to the quality and off campus, and we have our concerns. Next slide, please. There's been a lot of national and local coverage about these problems. We continue to try to engage and talk to the USM. about engaging us and the campuses about health and safety, but they refuse. We continue to find problems on the back end where our members have gotten sick or in grave danger, and the campuses respond at times. We think it's time that we have uniform bargaining that's cost efficient, saves the state money, saves the institutions money, instead of us fighting the same fights at every campus where we end up with different results. An electrician at Frostburg shouldn't get treated differently than an electrician at UMES. A coordinator at College Park should not be treated differently than a coordinator at UMBC. Next slide. We've also gotten support from faculty and students across campuses. This is a copy of a letter from the professors in arts and humanities that had 279 signatories they sent to Daryl Pines with grave concerns about the public health of our membership, because they've seen how in danger they are on a daily basis as they continue to report, both physical plant staff, but also office staff who have to report navigating childcare challenges as well as other challenges. Again, we've seen a very subjective micro approach to the health and safety within departments and divisions across campuses, but that isn't what we need here. We need a policy that protects everyone, that makes sense, it's efficient and uniform. Next slide.
Mr. Katzenberg, I just wanted to let you know that you have about 5 minutes left. So
yes, and I'm sending and
no problem. However you want to proceed.
So Kiana Tillman will be speaking next from UMES.
Good afternoon. My name is Kiana Tillman. I'm a proud AFSCME member, employee, and alum of UMES. And to be quite frank, in the midst of COVID, the goal is just to keep everyone safe. So I just have a simple question. Why don't we have a consistent plan across all USM schools? Prime example, just a few miles up the road from UMES, Salisbury State has well over 200 cases. However, they're handling it entirely differently from how UMES is handling it when we only had 23 cases thus far. And if we're all allegedly on the same team, then why aren't we all playing by the same rules? Until AFSCME did a caravan this summer, we were not involved in any planning or preparation for the reopening school. But since then we had. Even though there's lack in transparency with the reporting to the union, UMES is doing a lot right compared to the other USM schools. We're negotiating health policies and safety policies, and as well as cost contingent agreements. We have public safety at every entry point on campus doing sentinel screening. Our students are holding each other accountable. We're doing testing every 3 weeks. UMES is basically on the right track. However, the pandemic has hit us hard. Over the last 5 years, we've been struggling financially and facing budget cuts and furloughs within the USM school, which is why we really would like for the legislation to be done that was mandated last year with the HBCU budget lawsuit. Our team is being spread extremely thin. We're being tasked to do much more with less people. Our housekeepers are short-staffed and unbenefited, meaning they don't receive retirement, nor do they receive health benefits from the university. We're being asked to, a student affairs professional like myself, we're being asked to deliver food to the quarantine houses. We're working the testing sites, and we're still trying to keep campus as normal as possible, because at the end of the day, our students and our employees is what matter. Once we did discover that we were having isolation and quarantine housing on campus, we wanted to figure out what was the game plan. What concerns did we have was that nobody thought about the simple fact that these people will be cross-contaminating, our workers will be cross-contaminating each other, because they don't just work out in the quarantine stations. They actually go back to their remaining jobs. And they also don't receive hazard pay, nor do the student affairs professionals who work the quarantine housing. They also don't receive hazard pay. However, since then, we have negotiated with UMS and the staff working in quarantine facilities. They're going to make them their only assignments, and we are finalizing a hazard and emergency plan for those who want to work it. Essentially, all I'm trying to say is our students are taking precautions. Our employees are taking precautions. Our university is taking precautions. And now it's time for the USM to follow suit and take precautions as well for us. We all want to play by the same rules. Thank you.
Ms. Tillman, thank you so much for your testimony. Who else wants to go next, please?
Maria.
Oh, my name is Maria Ayala. For 15 years, I've been in housekeeping at College Park, Maryland. My coworkers and I are afraid to health and safety because UND has already failed to protect us. In May, I was one of the 108 residential facilities staff, the majority who signed a letter to demand enough PPE. When we return to work, each morning we are getting one of these masks. We go through a mask quickly while we are working. They get very sweaty before lunch. It is disgusting and dangerous to put them back on. We had demanded 3 masks a day. That's how many as housekeepers who clean classroom buildings receive. In June, July, during the record of wave of heat, with 20 straight days of 90 plus degree, UND turned off the AC. Indoors, we were cleaning. It was much harder inside the outdoors. I got sick, as many of my coworkers did. One of them got hospital. It was hard to breathe, and I had a headache, and my stomach was upset. Many of us housekeeping thought our symptoms were COVID-19. As another housekeeping had a severe case just a few weeks before. My doctor thought that it was because the high temperatures. My symptom was because of high temperature. President Daryl Pine only met with us and turned on the AC after we took action on social media and press. Many of us who got sick from the heat had to fight with UND to get restore our sick leave for those days we lost. 2 weeks ago, I had to take that hard choice to stay home because my son is taking class online on kindergarten. Right now, the USM has more than 500,000 of hours in their leave reserve fund. Staff like me deserve access to their leave during this pandemic. Our leave policies are not explained in clear in English, alone as in Spanish, putting many of us in risk and causing unnecessary fear. I thought I would not get paid until the union explained the policy to me. UND leadership is putting everybody in danger. They had to listen to frontline us working like me and bargaining in agreement and to ensuring our safe for all on campus. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for my English.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for your testimony. And I know that some of you had to take time off work. So we just appreciate you being here. And with that, we can turn to the next panelist. I don't know if Mr. Holden or Blair Noose, if you want to go, but please.
Blair.
Good afternoon, senators and delegates. I'm Blair Nouse. I've been the chemistry lab manager at Frostburg State University for the past 7 years. I work with students daily for class, research, and as their work study supervisor. Our students are the best part of my job, and watching them grow as scientists and people is extremely rewarding. However, this has been a safety nightmare that I never thought I would have to address in my labs. On January 27th, FSU made its first announcement to the campus community related to COVID-19. On March 13th, FSU canceled classes for the day and sent students home for spring break. However, most of my union brothers and sisters remained on campus without PPE for almost 2 weeks. FSU still told students to pack a bit more than normal since we might have an extended break. These plans shifted from extending spring break until April 6th to the complete end of face-to-face instruction in less than a week. Campus was closed 2 days after the scheduled end of break. The last-minute decisions seem to have continued since. Frostburg formed 14 different subcommittees to plan for the reopening of campus. Labor was not involved until the plan had been finalized and they had begun implementation. The plan was released on June 15th to the campus community, announcing an early fall semester start of August 17th. The members who were most impacted weren't included. Temporary and incomplete measures continue to leave us at risk as problems aren't addressed until labor brings them to the attention of the administration. There are still, as of Friday, shower curtains up to protect staff. Students are expected to disinfect public spaces throughout the day, and the only screening outside of the physical plan is self-reporting of subjective symptoms. Our members were scheduled to transport COVID-19 positive students to Quality Inn off campus for quarantine using a university van retrofitted with plastic sheeting and duct tape. The management solution was to have staff from outside the bargaining unit do the job. I don't know the procedure to keep these COVID positive students from leaving the quality and while they are off campus. I am fortunate that I am in a department where we always have had PPE, and the move to purchase necessary materials was made back in April. My supervisors have left me with the freedom to telework as much as my duties allow. Several other colleagues in departments are completely teleworking during this crisis. We're fortunate. The official stance is that it is up to supervisors to determine their department's needs, so others are expected to be on campus with students every day. Even outside of our physical plant, many of our staff can't work from home at all. This is unfair and unsafe. We were just given a furlough plan on Monday after months of circulating it on campus, but management had been refusing to discuss it. It is current in its current form. All of our employees face temporary salary reductions. FSU is a fantastic institution. I get to tell prospective students that it's so nice that I'm an alumni twice. But the last 6 months have left me increasingly sad, hurt, and angry. It's a mess that wasn't properly prepared for, and should have been different from the start.
Well, thank you very much. And the last witness for today is Todd Holden. Mr. Holden, thank you for being here. And if you kind of summarize your remarks and just hit the high points, because we do want to hear from you, though.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks. So my name is Todd Holden. I am a shop steward and interim president of AFSCME Local 1072 at the University of Maryland, College Park. And like my brothers and sisters have said previously, this thing is still rolling on. I think that one thing that is really revealing about this whole crisis is that not only does it really highlight the individual's characters when they're faced with a stressful situation, but it also highlights the institution's characters at the same time. And I think that we can see the ways in which a lot of weaknesses and a lot of inequities within the system are just being exacerbated by this. Even today at College Park, we are still chasing down lots and lots of problems. And management will say, as a point of pride, that they have met with the union, dozens of times since March. But that's often to address these problems and these flaws and these errors and these things that are putting our workers in danger. If the universities or the system itself were actually to negotiate with the unions, as is their right, we would have a lot less meetings. There would be a lot less problems. We would find that when worker voices are actually added into the mix and substantive agreements are reached, we would actually be achieving the excellence that the system claims to have, that the institutions claim to have, and frankly, what Marylanders expect from all of us. This is a situation where we need to be at our most excellent. We need to be at our most extra in order to get through this together so that no one is left behind. However, when I hear today that housekeepers who speak Spanish still do not know how to obtain testing, whether or not they need to obtain testing, and all of the problems that they have in just trying to get that accomplished, I can see that the response is not yet sufficient and that it requires worker voices at the table in order to solve this. I would ask the committees and everyone in attendance to actually examine whether or not we are achieving that excellence that we are claiming to have. And I think that until we have that sort of reckoning and that labor and management are on the equal footing, as is guaranteed by both the intent of the legislature and the state's laws, we're going to be going at this for much longer. And
thank you.
That's something that we need to avoid.
Well, thank you, Mr. Holden. And I was, it stuck out to me with the sign on one of the buildings that I guess was under quarantine that it says, "Please take off your PPE to stop the spread of the bacteria." And I wish it was that easy that we could just throw antibiotics on the bacteria, but it's actually a very deadly virus that's been spreading.